Hi, my name is Adam Green. I teach math and physics at BHS and just putting together a little tutorial video for you guys on standards-based grading in Canvas, just because a couple people had asked me. I'm going to have to break this up into a bunch of little parts because the program I'm using to record is limited to 5 minutes. So this will be a chunk of 5 minutes, and then you can keep continuing on to the next videos to cruise through, but it'll all be one kind of cohesive piece. So I'm just going to jump into one of my courses because I've already set some things up. But when you have graded your course, the first and most important piece here is the settings. So in settings, down at the bottom and over to feature options, the two things that I have selected, everything else is stock. The two things that I've selected are Learning Mastery Gradebook. I'll show that to you later, what it looks like when you look at the gradebook, and the Student Learning Mastery Gradebook, what it looks like when the student looks at the gradebook. So this is going to be collectively looking at the class, and this is going to be what the student is able to see. So once those are both selected, I'm going to climb down here to Outcomes. I don't agree with a lot of the vocabulary that's being used by Canvas, but essentially outcomes are the learning targets or the standards that you are choosing to assess. For this science course, I've set up 7 learning targets or 7 standards that I'm going to assess over the course of the entire year, but just from the get-go. And these are the 7 like science practices. You could, for example, in math, there are content standards and there are math practices, content standards being things like solve an equation, and practices being like justify an argument mathematically. But I would argue that these are what we want to assess because these are the things that we want our students to progress in. It's great if they can walk out of here being able to explain to me how gravity works, but being able to justify an argument or work with data, that's much bigger out in the real world. Okay, so to create, again, I created 7 of these, but just by adding an outcome, that will allow me to create a new learning target. So I'm going to call this learning target. The friendly name is optional. Not do it. And just typically right underneath it, when it all shows up, there's a description. I'm going to call this the learning tutorial. Those are kind of preference. Down here are the most important things. I think by the end of the video, I will be able to get through what this whole thing is. This is essentially the proficiency scale. So I am working on a 4-point proficiency scale, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I actually won't be using points. The students will not see points scored. They will only see wording. And I don't like the wording that they have here. So to get this to a 4-point scale, I'm going to 1, 2, 3. I'm going to insert one over here on the, well, let's insert one in between. So now I have a 4-point scale. I'm going to call this one excelling, meeting. So this would be developing. And it is worth 2 points. Points, again, are really not that important in terms of what's going on in Canvas, other than where proficiency is established. And then I guess towards the overall look of the gradebook. But I can use these little pencils to change the names to anything that I'd like and establish how many points each is. It is important to note that where it says mastery at 3, that's where I'm calling my proficiency. I think this is actually